The meeting of the Dudley-Charlton Regional School Committee is now in session. It's Wednesday, May 9th. We're at the Shepherd Hill Regional High School, and it is 7:02. First order of business, pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'd like to welcome Jamie Terry to the newly elected member, Charlton member.
Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome.
Yay.
Okay, we have approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting of Wednesday, April 25th.
So moved.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay,
I have to abstain.
and one abstention. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session of Wednesday, April 25th.
So moved.
Do I have a okay, discussion?
I have a question. Can we hold it until the executive
Okay,
session?
we'll hold it until executive session then. Okay, and that brings us to Citizens Forum. Anyone this evening that would like to come forward? Okay,
Good evening.
good evening.
Kenny LaFerriere from Charlton. I also want to extend congratulations to Mrs. Terry. I wanted to say a few words about the election, that I want to thank the Charlton voters for coming out. Mrs. Terry and Mr. Batar and I had a great day on Saturday. I think we didn't use enough sunscreen. It was a great day. I think all three of us learned a lot, and I really wish you all the best,
Thank you.
Jamie. It was, I think we all learned a lot. I obviously was disappointed with the result, but so wouldn't any one of us. And I continue to offer support to the schools and continue to be an advocate for the wonderful system we have. So I just wanted to say a few words tonight and thank the voters, and maybe more sunscreen next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you.
Thank you for running such a great race.
Oh, you as well.
Anyone else would like to come forward? Okay, seeing none, we will go straight to school spotlight, Shepherd Hill Regional High School this evening.
I'm here to be here, but I will jump in. I'm not a shy person. So we have two rock stars here who are going to talk about the Europe trip that they just went on. Paige and Kat are two unbelievable seniors that we have here in the building. Paige has actually been on every trip for the last 4 years. So they're gonna talk about this trip and then talk about how they how it's affected them and as graduates leaving here in a very short time. So I'm gonna turn it over to you guys.
Hi, I'm Paige.
And I'm Kat.
And this is our presentation on the Europe trip this year. We went to Dublin in Ireland, London, and
Wales and Normandy. So, yes. Oops. Oh. There you go. So the first place we went to was Dublin. And so we have a few facts about Dublin, such as everyone in Dublin speaks English, but they also have their own language known as Gaelic. And Dublin is the capital of the largest city in Ireland, and its population of Dublin is a little over 1 million people. And Dublin was founded by the Vikings in the 9th century. So we took a lot of pictures. I'm a photographer, so a lot of these pictures are my pictures during the slideshow. So up here is, we got to have a lot of free time. So we got to walk through a lot of streets, and this street in particular I really loved because all the bright colors, and it was really inviting because everyone in Ireland, you walk up and you're like, hi, how are you? And it's not like standoffish kind of thing. They're very happy and everything like that. And so this picture of Paige, we went to the Papal Cross, and this was the ice cream that they had. And this ice cream, I'm not kidding, is so different compared to ours. It is so fluffy, and it's so...
it's much better.
It's way better. So go to Ireland and get ice cream. And it was very good, and everyone ended up buying the ice cream. The lady at who was giving us ice cream was like, is this a school trip? And everyone's like, yep, we're here from Shepherd Hill. So, and then on the bottom right we ended up going to the Hoff Cliff Walk, which is this beautiful area where you look down and see the ocean, and on either side you'll see these beautiful yellow flowers. There's a lighthouse in the corner, as you can see right there. And we just got to spend like an hour and a half there, and we just got to walk around, and it was so peaceful. Like, all you could hear was the ocean. There was no really loud noises except for us. But overall, it was really beautiful, and that was, I think, my favorite part of the entire trip.
Yeah, that was
honestly.
a very breathtaking view right there.
Yes, definitely.
So here we have Wales. Wales is a country, part of the United Kingdom. Population is about 3 million. Cardiff is the capital and largest city, and Wales is known for its distinctive Welsh language and Celtic culture. So right here, this picture is a lake with the longest name. It's even longer than Webster Lake.
Yes.
And I would try to pronounce it, but
I tried, and people laughed at me. So.
This just doesn't make any sense to us, honestly.
Yeah.
And over here on the top left is the Conway Castle we visited. It was a really, really big castle with lots of pathways in it, and it was such a beautiful castle. And that's just an aerial view right there of the castle with like the moat around it.
The castle also, it's like what you would picture in movies. Like, you would see these all secret passageways and everything, and like all the, like what you see, there's a moat and everything, like it's literally a medieval castle, it looks like, and you just walk around, and we were like the only ones there too. So like we would say hi from across the castle, and you'd be like, who's there? And it would be like, it's Mr. Duffy. And I'm like, hi, Mr. Duffy. And it was so fun. Yeah. And then there's people who also live there who was kind of looking at us like, you're American. And I was like, yeah, I am. So next we went to London. So some facts about London is the capital of England in the United Kingdom. The population is around 8 million. And there are many things to see here, including the London Eye, Westminster Abbey, and the Big Ben, and the clock tower. They drive on the left side of the road and use pounds as their currency. So, driving on the left side of the road is kind of weird when you're a passenger. Just saying, because you're so afraid you're gonna hit someone because the roads are so tiny. And so even when I was walking, these buses were literally right on the sidewalk, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get hit, somebody's gonna get hit, but we were all good. No casualties there. But so so the top right picture is Tower Bridge. So we ended up taking a boat cruise, and it was really cool because everyone thinks that's the London Bridge. It's actually called the Tower Bridge. And so that was really interesting because we actually all thought it was the London Bridge. So that was really pretty, and it was a beautiful day when we saw it. And then we ended up going to Stratford-upon-Avon. I think that's how you say it. And we ended up going to William Shakespeare's home and Anne Hathaway's home. So that was his statue in his home. And then here's some more pictures of London. So do you want to describe it?
The middle one is Big Ben, but it has a bunch of scaffolding, unfortunately, so we didn't really get to see it very clearly. And then over here at the top is the walking bridge. You can play a first working.
What?
The Harry Potter bridge.
Oh, so if anybody's a big fan of Harry Potter, anybody?
I know enough
Yes.
about it.
Yes. So in the 6th movie, when you walk through, there's that bridge that collapses, and that's the bridge we walked on. So it was I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so I ended up going like, oh my god, I'm on the Harry Potter bridge. This is real. So that was really cool.
At the bottom left is the London Eye, and it was my second time going on it. It's huge. It holds about 35 people in it, I'm pretty sure, and it takes like about 35 minutes to go around. And when you get to the top, it's a very, very pretty view. You can see like all of London. You can see obviously
Buckingham
Big
Palace.
Ben.
Buckingham Palace. That was really cool. And this picture right here is the famous telephone booth. So
It's fun to take pictures with.
It's fun to take pictures with, yes. And then there's Buckingham Palace. So a fact that we learned is that there's technically 2 flags that's raised when the Queen is there. So there's only 1 flag raised right now, so that means the Queen wasn't there, which kind of was sad, but that's okay. So that's our London pictures. Okay.
Okay, so we also went to Paris. It's often referred to as the city of light and the city of love. The population is 2.2 million. Paris is France's capital city. and is a major European city and global center for art, fashion, gastronomy, and culture. At the top left, we have the Louvre. It's a big pyramid that sticks out of the ground. Yeah, that's the middle of the Louvre. It's home with the Mona Lisa. It's very in the bottom of the Mona Lisa. If you're wondering, it's smaller than you probably think it is.
It's so small.
It's like 2 by 1. It's not that big.
I was so excited because I thought it was going to be ginormous. No, it was covered in this giant glass. There was guards around it, and you kind of had to fight your way to take a picture with it. I'm like,
there's a big crowd of people there all trying to take a picture, so you have to like sneak through if you want to get up real close.
yeah.
And then next to it is just a picture of like the city from the 2nd floor of the Eiffel Tower. And we had a really nice view because it was like the sunset and it was so beautiful. And above it is the Eiffel Tower at night. It sparkles, and on the top of the hour, it sparkles. But like when this, it just stays all lit up. It's really cool.
And then we also went to the Palace of Versailles, and we learned about all the King Louis. So that was a statue of King Louis XVI, I think. And then over here, those are just some flowers I found. I thought they're really pretty. So, yeah.
And at the bottom, we have Notre Dame. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go in this time because we were short on time, but the outside was very beautiful.
Yes. So then we went to Normandy, and so facts about Normandy is that it's a region located in northern France. Normandy is the site for the World War II D-Day beaches, and the population is 3 million. So Normandy, I actually loved. I didn't really know much about it before we went there, and it was really interesting when we got there. So one of the first things we did was go to where like the battle, where before they prepared for battle, where they slept, where they prepared, like looking out on the lookout and trenches and everything. So we got to go through that, which is really pretty. And that was a view on the top right. That's the view that you can see from it. And then we ended up going to a cemetery with everyone who passed away during that at Normandy. And the part that stuck out to me, sorry, the part that stuck out to me the most was this picture when it was "Here rest in the honor, glory, comrade in arms, known but to God." So it was an unknown soldier, and it was really special to me because I had a great uncle who fought in that war, and I don't know where he is, so it could be him, but I don't know. But I thought that was really cool. And there was the little rose, and you could tell them too, if you had a family member there that you knew of, you could go visit your family member all the time, which is really nice too, and they know where every person is, so that was really interesting.
Yeah. Then we went to, I think, 3 different beaches, like of the battlefield. Like we went to Omaha Beach, and there we stopped and we all got sand. We put it in a water bottle and we took it home. We were not sure if it's legal or not. We did it anyway. It was very fun. I still have the sand. It's really soft. So these on the bottom were pictures from the beaches we went to. The middle is a statue
That they left in remembrance.
on Omaha Beach, and the bottom right is you see it when you first enter Omaha Beach. It's really, really big.
It talked about the battle too.
Yes.
They talked about on this day, this many people died, this is what time it started, this is what time it ended, kind of thing. So that was really interesting. And we're done.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, when I get what's that thing called that you have to give to your teachers that are writing you reference letters for college? It's like a senior profile.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I noticed that when I read those, a lot of students cite the foreign language trip as the great, the top experience of their lives. Why do you think that is?
I mean, for me personally, I grew up pretty much in Charlton. Like, I've lived in Charlton pretty much my whole life. So, and I go to places but not out of the country. So going to a place where
You're
everyone's...
like Dudley?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. So,
Sturbridge.
yeah, and maybe like Connecticut sometimes.
Sure.
But when I'm going to a different country, it's just really cool to see like how everyone is different compared to us, and like all the different languages and different food. Like the food was amazing over there. just saying. But it was, I don't know, I feel like it's going to help me a lot too when I'm going to college, because I want to study abroad, so I feel like that's going to really help me, and I want to do maybe something in cultural business or something, international business. So I think that would really help me. I want to go back as soon as possible.
I think it's been like, it's such a good experience, especially me going 4 years, that I've experienced so many different cultures, been to so many different places, seen like the famous Eiffel Tower and the Mona Lisa. It just gives you a lot of background, and you can like tell your stories to your kids when you're older. I feel like that's a good thing. Like, you've been places, like honestly, I live in Dudley. I've been there my whole life. I go like to Vermont and stuff. Like, I don't go out of New England, so that I get to go to Europe is like an amazing experience.
Do you remember what I told you in the capstone presentation to always start every interview with?
Yes.
What?
In like something like in Europe, they taught me.
I said,
exactly.
you start everyone, pick a city, and then say Paris, and you say, if I've learned anything from my time in Paris, and then you say whatever you want to say. But yeah, it's amazing how many students reference this as their best experience of their life so far. And you know, you guys probably know the economy, the world you're going into to make a living someday, soon, it's really shrinking. It's not like when I was a kid. It was no joke. I lived in Worcester. Going to Shrewsbury was a big deal. Now it's like, you know, with the internet and cell phones and everything, you could be doing business in Paris like it's like you're doing business in Webster. You know, so it really is a great experience. I'm glad you took advantage of it, and I'm very, very proud of the way that you put this together and presented it. You both speak very well, and I hope that you'll use that at some point in the future.
Thank you.
That was a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome job. Thank you, girls.
Want me to give you a dumb joke?
Sure.
Okay, why is Ireland such a rich country?
Wow.
Because the capital is always Dublin.
There you go.
You can use that.
I'll tell you,
That's my father's Irish humor.
I didn't know they were known so much for their ice cream, though. I thought that was more Italy, but I'm
Yeah,
glad now I know. Now I really want to go to Ireland. I've always wanted to
You
go.
want ice cream? Pinecroft.
The kids are so lucky because it's such a great experience to go abroad.
Paige, Kat, before you leave, I don't know if you are aware, I meant to mention this earlier and I apologize, but I don't know if you're aware, but these trips can't happen if the school committee doesn't approve them.
Approve them.
And,
My little sister's gonna be a freshman next year, and I want her
well,
to
that's
have
not my
the
point. I'm not trying to put more pressure on them. But with all the things that have happened in the world in the past 10, 15 years, there's been pressure on this group to maybe not do this as much. And I'm very happy that, and I know you're really happy that they've continued to do this because we see the value in,
Well, I got to
in
visit
learning
my
this way.
aunt who lived, my cousin who lived in Ireland, and I usually don't get to see her, so I got to spend a whole day with her, and I thought that was really
so
nice.
nice.
So, yeah.
So make sure all your friends know they should appreciate that the school committee's, that they're the reason that you're able to go.
Yes, trust me, very appreciative.
It's been the
All right.
best 4 years.
A nice little shout out on Twitter wouldn't hurt.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Sorry, Mrs. O'Connor.
That's okay. They did a great job,
They were good.
those kids.
It was nice with the information of the city
Yeah.
next to it. That was very good.
Little,
Impressed
little
with their
plug.
presentation skills.
Right.
We're-
you speak
oh
very
my
well.
They
goodness.
were really
Little
good.
plug for the photography business at the beginning.
Yeah.
The burgeoning photography
And
business.
Paige's mother is my dental hygienist.
Oh,
Okay.
Valancourt.
When I heard Paige, I said, I bet that's the Sandy's
sure.
daughter.
They inspired me.
So, okay. That brings us up to communications. Mr. Desto.
None for me tonight, Mrs. O'Coin.
Okay, how about our members?
I'm actually
Elaine.
you're early, so I'm just collecting some things. So just to share, yesterday I attended the Mars annual meeting, and just wanted to share that the Deputy Commissioner of Education, Jeff Wilson, was there. So it was a good meeting. We did have some conversation regarding some of the legislative action that's being taken right now. So one of the pieces that went through the House, which was a new topic for me, is that they did approve a regional, a transportation commission to study transportation across all domains, so not only regional transportation, but transportation costs for homeless populations, for McKinney-Vento. So that is separating it out for the issue. He's not a fan of the 100% regional transportation reimbursement piece, and is also one of the people that are looking for us to have a number that is selected that is consistently delivered. But the Transportation Commission, I think, will be very helpful. There was a conversation, though, in relation to the busing piece, and I think it's helpful to know that there really is conversation starting regarding the lack of competition, and maybe looking at the availability of the state to come forward to provide some opportunity or relief through that, which I think was a good piece. And I'm going to go into, there was a conversation regarding the receivership opportunities, and there was a conversation regarding Southbridge's receivership and the charter school opening next door to it. But more importantly, there was conversation regarding some of the things that we've talked about legislatively. So currently, Senator Sear has filed an amendment to the Senate budget. It's amendment number 3, and it's regarding the Regional School Study Commission. I know that Senator Goby has signed on to it. The reason why it failed in the House was a lot of confusion regarding representatives that felt that the issue was regarding the transportation piece, and since the transportation piece was taken care of in another mechanism, they didn't see that it was a study commission to look at the budget. So what we've been asked to do is to reach out not only to our senators to support amendment number 3, but also because we feel that that support is there for that amendment, to be able to go back and visit with our state representatives to avoid the confusion that existed, so that we can move forward with that legislation. So I just wanted to share that information with you regarding that meeting yesterday.
Thank you, Elaine. Any questions for Elaine? Okay. Any other members with communications this evening? No? Okay. Superintendent's report, Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. Rebecca, are you going to talk about the concert Friday night? Yes. All right, I'll hold off on that. I appreciate that. Well, tonight I was smart enough to reach out in advance. So, but I do have several things tonight, and I want to start with some really good news. I've got congratulations for several people in the district tonight. First, I want to congratulate and thank all of our art teachers and all of our students whose artwork was on display at what was another very successful district-wide art show last Friday night. I really enjoyed getting a chance to walk around and see the artwork and see how proud the students are, especially the younger students. They're literally one picture on display among thousands, and they're so proud of that picture, as are their parents, and as they should be. And then as you move through, you've all been there before, as you move through, you get to the very end where the really serious art students are, who may even continue with art in college. And so just a great show, and it takes an enormous amount of work among our art teachers, so I want to make sure that I thank them publicly tonight. Also want to congratulate and thank the Charlton Middle School Drama Club for their, I didn't have a chance to see it, but was told that The Sound of Music this past weekend was an incredible show and a great performance, so I want to thank the cast and crew of that group. Also congratulating the NELMS, is the New England League of Middle Schools, and as the committee will recall, every year we have 4 students, 2 at each middle school, who are chosen as what's called the Scholar Leader Award. And this is essentially like a, well, I'll put it this way. I've been going to this thing for, I don't know, 18 years, I guess now. And when you're in that room with all these students, 2 from each middle school across the state, the students that are in that room 10 years from now could probably run the world. They're that special. And, you know, so I want to be sure to congratulate our winners for this year. First, from Dudley Middle School, these are all 8th graders, by the way. From Dudley Middle School, Alec Popovich and Molly Starshevsky, who takes strongly after her mother. We got a proud dad here in the audience today, so congratulations to Alec and Molly, truly great kids. And at Charlton Middle School, Kyle Norberg and Adeline Smith. So I want to congratulate them and their families on a great honor. A week from tonight is the Scholar Leader Dinner in Marlborough, and I hope you've received an invitation already, Mrs. O'Coin.
I did send an email.
Okay. And
Kyle Milberg is my nephew too, so.
all right.
Also
They
like
take after you?
I'd also like to congratulate him.
All right, and maybe he takes after his mother too, I don't know. But so good stuff, and look forward to attending that again a week from tonight. Also, big congratulations, you're already aware that the Shepherd Hill Envirothon team is going to be honored at the State House on May 14th at 11 a.m. for receiving the Mass Secretary of the Environment's Award for Excellence in Environmental Education. That's a mouthful, but it is a very prestigious honor. And our Envirothon team is really catching on around the state. People are starting to really take notice of the good work that they're doing under the leadership of Justin Savageau and Ray Sullivan, both teachers here at Shepherd Hill. So congrats to them. I'll skip over the concert for now, Rebecca. And also just want to remind the committee that it's the season for senior activities, and we have several of them coming up, most notably ones that the committee members generally attend. On May 31st at 6 p.m. at Holy Cross is the senior banquet, and on June 3rd is the graduation. And as you'll recall, this year we are switched to 6 p.m., and then next year we'll go back to the usual time. But so May 31st and June 3rd.
So Dustin, would you send an invitation to Mr. Chalk for those?
Oh, of course, of course. And that's all I have, Mrs. O'Coin.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Desto? Okay, that brings us up to our student rep report. Rebecca?
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. So I'm going to start with what Mr. Desto was going to say, just out of respect. So the Shepherd Hill Music Department is holding a Broadway Spectacular this Friday. We've been working really hard on it. Miss Boussiere has really been, you know, putting a nail in the coffin, like trying to make us know our stuff. And, you know, all of us are like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the year, like I just want to be done, but we're all excited. It's going to be a great show. Also, AP exams started this week. I had the pleasure of taking one this morning, bright and early at 8, and I felt good about it. And they're going until the end of next week, and then also the start of senior finals. And the students are taking the test to see how, for many reasons, like to get out of college courses their freshman year, or like see how much they've mastered the course. So that's what everyone's up to. And then if you were on your way here and you saw the cars that seemed to collide, that is for the mock car crash that is taking place tomorrow morning, put together by the lovely Miss Gustafson and the Students Against Destructive Decisions. And it's demonstrated for seniors to raise awareness against drunk driving and reckless driving, which is it's really good. Everyone looks forward to it every year, and there's also an assembly afterwards. And yeah, so I'm being the calf, and so I'm gonna have a front row seat, and I'm kind of excited, but also scared because I don't want to see my peers like that ever. So, but that's why they do it, because it raises awareness and really opens eyes to people. So yeah, that's all I have today.
Thank you,
May
Rebecca.
I add something about the Pops concert?
Yes.
Just that on the way out, you can see the set list on the wall. And there's in a quick glance, I saw a Who song and a Queen song. So I know that there's going to be some rockin' tunes going on there Friday night.
About Frank Sinatra.
There might be. It's a very diverse set list, so it very well could be. And I wanted to ask, if I may, Mrs. O'Coin, Rebecca, the committee, we hear a lot of times about AP classes and how much more
Yeah.
rigorous they are.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just give us kind of a feeling for what that test was like this morning?
So honestly, during the course of the year, you're like, oh, the test is far away, like I have plenty of time, and then it's like the week before and you're like, oh crap, like I don't know what to do. But taking the test, honestly, it was AP English Literature, Miss Martirosian. I took it, and it wasn't easy, but I knew what to expect, I knew how to handle it. So yes, like throughout the year, the course is rigorous, but it definitely helps with the test, and that's the AP teacher's main goal is to just kill that test and like do your best. So it's rigorous, but I think it's definitely worth it when the time comes to test what you know about the course.
You
So.
felt prepared for it.
Yeah, I really
And,
did.
I've been told by students one year or more older than you that they felt that way as well, but then they felt even more prepared when they got to college. That
Yeah.
it was, I won't say their classes were easy in college, but they were a little bit more doable because of the preparation that they had.
Yeah, because because like some schools you can't, like they don't accept like AP scores, or like you still have to take this class, which I agree, it's like really, it'll be really easy. So it's like, oh, I may have gotten a B in AP whatever, but I have an A+ in this college class,
Mhm.
which is what really counts. So I agree on that too.
Thank you.
Rebecca.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. That brings us to new business, FY 2019 Budget and Finance Subcommittee Report. Stephanie, this evening?
I thought it was on Rich first, but okay. So we had our meeting at 5 o'clock before this one, and the subcommittee reviewed retirements and resignations and the possible savings for the district because of them, but there is no set number as it stands right now. We did a preliminary review of stipends to see if there was maybe some savings for our district there at some point. And then we also talked about looking forward to what capital repairs our schools will need and discussed maybe having a feasibility study for all the schools at a later time.
Very good, Stephanie. No addition?
I would just want to add a little bit of stuff. Mrs. Reed hit it on the head, but just a little bit of the discussion centered on something that I think we'll probably talk about again in the next month or two, and beyond that at this table, and that is that. By the way, have I mentioned how much we appreciate the support of the towns in the override? We really, truly do. No, we really do, but we also know that there are still going to be other challenges ahead of us. It doesn't solve the whole problem. And so one of the things that we discussed a little bit tonight is knowing that we can't just continually go to the voters for overrides and continuously add to the taxes of the good people that have supported us. We just had a brief discussion and started kind of dipping our toe in the water about other ways that we can engage the towns in discussions where there might be revenue sources, whether it be businesses in town, whatever it might be. So that's something we'll talk a little bit more about in the next few meetings, I'm sure. And I think that there'll be wisdom in starting those discussions next year about, look, these are going to be our needs long term. A lot of them are capital related, and what revenues are coming into the towns that can be utilized possibly. And so just the beginning of that, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Director in Finance and Operations Report, Mr. Matthew.
Thank you very much. A couple of items for the committee this evening. First, a few donations that the district has received. The Charlton Elementary School received a donation of $500 to be used for technology from Patricia and Dennis Winsky. Charlton Middle School received and this is actually a second donation of $5,000 from the Ramsey family to be used to benefit Ms. Sullivan's and Mrs. Bratton's 5th grade classrooms. Additionally, the Shepherd Hill High School Music Program Department has received a donation of $35,000 from the Janet Masler Humanities Trust for the purchase of a new piano. I certainly recommend acceptance of these donations, and specifically the $35,000 donation would qualify for.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the donations that Mr. Matthew has mentioned.
So moved.
Discussion?
Just I think that's probably the most major piece of equipment that's been replaced since the school originally was the piano.
Might be the second time.
Second time?
Yeah, I think so.
That's fantastic.
That's a fantastic amount too, $35,000.
It's a lot of money, and we certainly will send a thank you.
Yeah. So, seeing no discussion, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Second piece of business is our special education transportation contract. I'll remind the committee that when I started here a little over 3 years ago, we were looking at cost increases from the collaborative for our out-of-district special ed transportation. We were able to negotiate with a private firm, Vanpool, to keep our costs static. That contract is now expiring. Vanpool's proposal for the upcoming 3-year contract is to keep half of the routes, and for out-of-district we have 14 routes. Half of the routes would remain static in terms of pricing through all 3 years. The other routes, because of their distance, would have a $5 per day increase over the course of each of the 3 years. So basically $900 per day for each of those per year for each of those routes. We've heard primarily positive things about Vanpool and its staff, and in those rare occasions where there have been issues, Vanpool has been very good about rectifying them. My recommendation to the committee is to extend this contract.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the renewal proposal by Vanpool.
Second.
Discu-
What's the
discussion.
total figure for that, you know, the transportation for that, then what would the total amount be?
It's about $870,000 or so. That includes both in-district and out-of-district.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you. At one point, I believe it was Mrs. Rabbit, but I may be wrong there, had asked the question as to whether or not there were actually cameras on the special ed vehicles. Mrs. Rabbit, yeah. We currently do not have them. Vanpool does offer them at $5 a day for an individual route, an individual bus. If we were to entertain doing all 23 routes that we have with them, the cost would be about $21,000 for the year. We don't have this in the budget as we sit here right now, but if it's something that the committee wanted to entertain, I could certainly let Vanpool know that we might, be in a position to add those in as the school year starts.
Stephanie?
What do you mean by $5 a day? Is the camera already on the van?
No.
It's
no.
not.
This would be something that they purchase new equipment for and put them on the vans.
But once they're purchased, would they be our cameras or would they be the van's?
They would be
cameras?
Vanpool's cameras. We'd be renting them basically for $5 a day.
So could we put that in the contract, or like we did with the first student, or no?
We could certainly try to negotiate that in, where they do have it as an a la carte, if you will, additional charge.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they'd be inclined to do that for the out-of-district at this point in time.
I mean, I think that's just like the school buses. I think cameras are a good monitoring system for the students.
I think basically if we were to try to negotiate that in, they'd say, okay, yep, okay, the routes have gone up by $5 a day.
Right, right. All right.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Do we know how long the feed would hold? Is it 1 day long? And maybe you don't because we aren't looking into it yet, but I think that would be worthwhile to know if we were trying to track something that could have happened on the bus, but it only holds feed for 1 day or something like that.
If we were to look at doing this, Mrs. O'Connor, through you, I think we'd want to try to make sure we have at least a week's worth of recording availability.
Right.
Okay.
So that, if there was an incident on Monday that didn't get reported till Wednesday and then they didn't have a chance to pull the tape till Thursday, we didn't want to miss that.
Sure, that's what I was getting at.
I feel strongly that this is an issue that we should look at for the protection of our students and the protection of the district, especially when you're looking at many of the students that are traveling in these particular vans or buses don't have communication skills. And I think there are times that questions are raised that we can't find answers to because we don't have an ability to involve a student in the conversation of what happened on the bus. So I think it's a protection for both the district as well as it is a protection for students that we should seriously look at considering this issue.
I'm
Even
gonna make a
if-
motion that we put the cameras on the buses for discussion purposes.
Do I have a second?
I have a
Okay, more
question.
discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. How much did you budget for the special ed buses?
Again, it's about the 850,000 or so.
So it's
off
already
the
up
top
because
of
of that increase?
The increase on the routes is included in that cost. The cost of the cameras is not.
No, but I mean, we haven't gone over the special ed transportation bus figure because of that increase of $5.
No.
So we're breaking even right now.
Yes,
If we don't
yeah,
put the cameras in.
what we have budgeted is what we expect,
Okay.
plan to spend for next
Could we
year.
take this money out of the regional transportation account that we have that?
We don't have a sufficient balance as of today, and the balance that is in there is committed towards the FY19
Okay, so we can't
transportation.
touch it, we can't touch that.
We can't touch it right now for that purpose, correct.
So if we were to do this, where would the money come from?
It would come, right now, if I had to fund this, I would say we would take it from contingency. In a month or so, when we continue with the hiring process and identify, any other potential retirements or leaves that may occur, that frees up some budget money, we could earmark this as a priority.
I do think it's necessary to have cameras where these kids, some of their communication skills aren't as good, and it would be beneficial to them for their safety.
So through the chair, how, is this something that we can make the final decision on in August and have it implemented for the start of school? How much advance notice do we need to do this? So if we were to wait a little bit longer as the budget process continues to move through, numbers might change and we might not be as concerned.
Let me reach out to Vanpool and express the committee's interest in pursuing this and see what they come back with, okay? They have been good partners with us, and it's possible that they may be willing to be good partners with us a little bit more.
I was just gonna ask, maybe you don't know the exact number, but several of the vans have monitors. Would that be a way of saving some money? If there's a monitor, do we still want a camera? I think we probably do, but I'm just throwing that out there to the committee.
I think they should all have it. I don't think we should distinguish.
Right, I mean, there's no question that there needs to be, if it's good for one kid, it's good for
Right,
all the
right.
kids. I agree with that, but I was just gonna say where there are monitors and there are additional eyes on the
But
situation.
still,
Through the chair, if I could speak to that, Mr. Desto, if there's a monitor on the bus already, then this is a student that has probably more advanced needs.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it would be more likely that even on protection of the district, we would want to make sure that there was a camera there, so that if there was an incident, we would be able to have actual, we're not just reliant on what was said, but we would be in a better position, I think, to respond to that.
do you
Any
want
other-
to table it then? Are we going to vote tonight or not then?
Can we make a motion to table it until?
Withdraw
Well,
the
we don't
second.
need a motion to
We'll just
table it,
withdraw
I can
everything.
just table it, but withdraw the second. Who gave the second? You did. You're withdrawing, she's withdrawing the
I'm
motion.
going to make a new motion
So
that we
we'll
instruct-
just,
I'm gonna
we'll
make-
just table
I'll
it.
make a new motion that instruct Mr. Matthew to investigate options with Van Pool, that we are interested in having them on all the buses.
I'll report back to the committee at the next meeting.
I need a second.
Okay, I need a second. Okay, any more discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you. To follow up from our conversation of our last meeting about the First Parent app, I broke out all of the costs related with implementing the app here. And as you can see here, the cost of the First Parent app would be $12,420. The routing software, which is required, is $2,000. The outside assistance in setup, ongoing maintenance, and training would be viewed as as a first-year cost only. And that cost, again, is the $15,000. Based on our discussions at the last meeting, I did go back to that outside vendor and asked, okay, if we were to just have you set up stuff and provide us with some training, but not ongoing maintenance, the cost they came back with would be a one-time fee of $10,000. The cost really is in the initial setup. As they indicated to me, you know, generally they're looking for a 2-year commitment from people for the ongoing maintenance and training to help them better recoup their costs. While I'm not looking to fund their retirement accounts, I think that, you know, it is fair to recognize that, you know, there is a lot of effort involved in getting this set up. However, my recommendation to the committee would be one of two. First, if we wanted to implement the First Parent app for the start of the upcoming school year, I would recommend that we do it and do it correctly, and that's get the app, get the routing software, and bite the bullet and do the ongoing maintenance and training and assistance. If the committee, and understandably so, is reluctant to spend that extra money, then another option would be to just get the routing software. Let us play with it for a year, see how far we can get with it, see what we can do with it, see what costs we might be able to avoid, and then possibly, probably, hopefully, be in a position to implement the First Parent app the second year of the contract.
So what's the committee's wishes? Are we going to bite the bullet as recommended by Mr. Matthew, or take another option, get the app and then fool around with it, as he said, for the year?
I think we should bite the bullet, because I know that I've discussed this with Mr. Matthews. One of the things that we did discuss was the time commitment that staff would have to put into it for the first year. And then at the end of the year, we might not still know what we need to do. And not to say anything about anybody's intelligent level, but just time commitment. So if somebody can come in and say, this is exactly what you need to do, I think that's a better investment. And I also think that it's a better investment to get us up and running as soon as possible, because of what's been happening with parents and students, and what the teachers have to deal with, what the principals have to deal with, and what you guys have to deal with at the main office. So I think it's a good step to take.
I do. I agree with you.
I do too. You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go for it.
Make
Go
a
ahead.
motion that we take the
Option
the
of
option that
29.
Mr. Matthews at the table.
And the total is $29,420.
$29,420. Okay.
Second.
Okay, more discussion?
I just want to make a comment. I'm still struggling with paying this amount of money for something that just tells us where the bus is. I would rather spend the money on cameras in the vans. So I think at some point we need to make a choice as to what is more important to us, so that we can allocate the funds to the most important things on our list. And for me, I think it's more important to be able to ensure the safety of the students on the buses and the vans with the proper camera equipment than for parents to be able to know minute by minute where the bus is.
What does the routing software do for $2,000? What does that actually mean?
That provides us a license to utilize the software. Versatrans is, routing software. It literally is, you plug in a student's address, where their stop is, and you do that 4,000 times for all 4,000 students, and you put the bus routes in and all of the individual stops. And it provides a level of insight that the district, doesn't have without that type of software.
So how do you do it now, by hand? You do it all by hand? I mean,
Right now, we basically have a road assignment. So, bus one, it's these 7 roads, these 8 roads.
with the kids' names, though, the kids'
Yeah,
names.
yeah, yeah.
So how would this be better, this $2,000?
By having something that's computerized, you can run scenarios. You can, rather than guessing, it may take 5 extra minutes to make this change, it's going to give you the actual details based on, the information that's in the software.
But we could do that with the routing component, correct?
Right, it's just.
Without the parent component.
That's
They
correct.
cost the
That's
additional
correct.
money. So I'm thinking that it's more cost-effective to put the money toward the routing portion so that you can do that analysis.
and potentially save a bus, than the other component that costs even more money and we're getting little bang for the buck in times of budget crunch.
So the other thing actually would tell the parent could click in and say the bus is at Dudley Oxford Road and it'll be at your house in 3 minutes or something like that?
Exactly.
Can I ask 2 questions? First, if we add this expense, is this something that would be part of our reimbursement amount? Would this be something that would be in our regional transportation reimbursement amount?
I don't believe so.
Okay. The other question that I have is, really still trying to understand the assistance piece of $15,000 and the maintenance and training. And is there some type of proposal that First App has provided us that lays out the details of what that includes? The second part to that question is how much are we needing to account for this taking of time of staff in the central office to be monitoring, managing all this?
Well,
So you mentioned that they're looking at a 2-year commitment.
that's what they normally expect from clients.
Okay.
They're not requiring that of us.
Okay. Well, I know we had talked about it at the last meeting as to whether or not it was, an option of, a month-by-month pace, or picking a place that at some point in time we could stop, so that we weren't committed to the full year or 2 of this type of process.
Yeah, they did get back to me and say, no, if you want to do the one-time setup, it would be this cost
Okay.
with, the training hours included. If you want to have them do the ongoing thing, it would be a year-long commitment for the
And
full 15,000.
don't forget this 29,000, it's just one time, once everyone knows how to use the app. That's it, we're not paying this all the time.
Well,
It's
the
just-
15,000 is a one-time expense.
Yeah.
The 12,420 and the 2,000 are recurring expenses.
Okay, those are going to be recurring, but the 15
Is one time.
is a one-time, okay. So we won't have that expense after that, so is it,
And if I could also answer Mrs. Rabbit's question about office staff, we're not proposing to add new staff. I don't think it will come as much of a shock when I say our current staff is working full-time, so this is going to be something that's added on to existing staff. And that's why I can sit here and say that, without appropriate training, trying to get everything off the ground for the start of the year by ourselves is just not going to happen.
What's the superintendent's recommendation?
I knew you might ask me that.
We get the bucks.
I think, a lot of research and a lot of work's gone into this, and I think, there's certainly both sides make a good case. I definitely think it comes down to a simple question of whether or not you think that it's worth $27,000 for parents to know where their kid's bus is. When I think about the things that we need, I must say, I'm sorry to disagree with some of the folks at the table, but I agree with Mrs. Antasi. I think that the $2,000 for the routing software, which would give us a possibility. First of all, it'd help with efficiencies anyway. So, if nothing but that, it's worth that. But there's also the outside shot that this would help us to see that we can do things more efficiently and possibly save even more money later on down the road. I think that I'll say this, I've been a school administrator for 18 years, and I can count on 2 hands the amount of times that people have complained to me because they didn't know where their child's bus was. Now, I know that they complain to other people about it. I do, and I've been there too. I've been the parent waiting and seeing where's the bus? It's not coming around the corner. I really do understand the frustration, and in some cases, parents even look at it as a safety thing. Like, this is almost like a safety piece. So I definitely don't want to downplay the importance of that parent app, but I think if I were pushed to it, to say that is it worth $27,000 and a recurring $12,000 every year, I would say I don't. I think that the $2,000 for right now is the way to go, and let's see if we can do the other thing a different way.
Do you need help with that routing software? Do they have to be trained on that? Is that kind of easy to do?
Well, it's not easy to do, but if we have time to play with it ourselves, then we can kind of self-teach and, you know, devote an hour, you know, here, an hour there to learning it. And if there's no time pressure of, okay, this has to be up and running by August 15th, otherwise, you know, we've blown the $12,000, it becomes a lot easier to mentally accept, okay, I'm just gonna change my schedule a little bit and you know, do these things.
Go ahead, Jay.
I have 2 points. One, if we do opt to move forward for this first year and we don't see a benefit to our families, can we opt out? Can we, in year 2, say we don't want to spend the $12,420, and how easy can we do that?
That would just be okay, we're not gonna continue with this.
Okay, and then if we opt not to move forward with the outside assistance, yet the software has trouble in some manner, a friend of mine in another community has this, and it showed her child bus was coming from Africa the other day. So if
And
there's...
it wasn't?
It wasn't. So maybe it was.
The
next
scenic
year. But if we have trouble, will they stand behind their product and come out even if we don't spend the $15,000?
Well, if we don't spend the $15,000, then we're doing the setup ourselves. And that's why we want a year to learn the software and kind of get familiar with it.
Okay.
And it's exactly that reason that I would not recommend that, you know, we try to rush this out and do it ourselves, you know, for September 2018.
Okay.
That's just not feasible.
Okay.
For exactly that reason.
But you feel confident, I'm sorry, I'm coming new to this, but you feel confident in the app itself that run by people that understand it, that those type of errors would not occur?
I wouldn't think so. I mean,
Okay.
the demonstration that Mrs. Reed and I saw, you know, it's a viable product.
Okay.
Again, it's really just comes down to whether or not the committee wants to, you know, make the investment in it or not.
Thank you.
But I certainly do think that investing in the routing software is a no-brainer for the $2,000.
Elaine.
Just a question, I'm looking to find a compromise between both positions. Is there a possibility that instead of looking to start at the beginning of the school year, we look to turn around and start it halfway through the school year? So, and again, for 2 purposes, perhaps when the final budget is through and we know what our end numbers are, the cost pressure might be different, but secondly, if we were looking to do it and maybe do a January through, you know, January 1st to December 31st piece, it just shifts when the cost is happening. So.
Mrs. O'Coin, if I may, Mrs. Rabbit, you got me thinking about something additional to that, which is, I would ask Mr. Matthew, maybe you don't know, but is this all or nothing? Is it the whole district or nobody, or could we do essentially like a pilot program at the Mason Road School? I'm just saying that because Mrs. Parmley's right there. Just an example, where there are 250 plus 300 students-ish. You know, our youngest kids, parents always worry about their, you know, the younger they are. Could we try it out on a small scale before we commit to, because for us, $27,000 is a lot.
I certainly don't know the answer
Okay,
to that
I don't
question
mean to put
as
you on
I
the
sit
spot.
here.
I know, I didn't think that you did, and that's
However,
okay.
putting myself in their shoes, you know, while we may get a discount on the app, there still is that setup involved, and while it may only be 250, it's still pretty much the same process.
Okay.
And sometimes, you know, whether you have 4,000 records or 250, there's not that much time difference involved.
Fair enough.
So we have a motion on the floor. Any more discussion before we take a vote? So all in favor? Opposed? Okay. 3 in favor and 4 opposed, defeated.
I'm going to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Elaine. I thought you had your hand up.
I'm gonna vote present because I still think that I don't want it to die. I think, I really would like to look at it, preferably postpone it and come back and look at it.
We already took the vote.
Yeah,
but
no, that's why I'm voting present. I'm just giving you my
Okay,
rationale.
present. Okay. Sorry, Elaine, I thought you had your hand up. So,
All right. Does the committee want me to pursue the Versatrans routing software itself?
Well, we'll entertain another
I'll
motion.
make a motion to get the routing software for $2,000.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion, more discussion on it.
I think we should, maybe next year, I don't think this is a dead issue, but I think for this year, we should put it on hold because it's so late with the money and so forth.
I still like the parent
I
component.
like the idea, but I
you
think
know?
we should
The
wait
idea,
a year and
but
see how this
Yes.
works out for us.
That's,
I still think there's a possibility that this can get resurrected during next school year once we're further along in the budget process. And I think starting with their routing software, if we were to find cost savings in a bus, then the money is there for us to turn around and do this. So I don't think it's a completely
No, I
done
don't
issue.
either.
I just think it's, we need to talk about this a little bit further down the issue.
okay, any other discussion? So all in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Oh, Mr. Matthew, you're still on.
Sandy's having technical issues
Oh.
right now,
So we need help.
hold on for 1 second.
Get out the pencil and paper, Sandy.
Need a new computer?
Future
Well, if I finish
generations,
up, I can go over
future
it.
generations.
If you want.
Well, okay.
Okay. And just the last thing I had for the committee was, I did have the quarterly update included here, both the general fund and the revolving funds. As I have indicated before, I don't think we'll meet the goal of returning all of the excess and deficiency funding that we're using towards the FY19 budget from the FY18 budget. I do plan to give the committee an update at the first meeting in June of where I expect to close and any possible budget transfer recommendations at that point in time. I don't know if there are any specific questions on the quarterly reports.
No, no, no. There is-
That's all I had for this evening.
That's it. Thank you. Consideration to approve 2018-2021 strategic plan. Mr. Desto?
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. I'm going to ask Mrs. Allen to please join me for the very briefest of presentations. And again, it is truly just a quick outline. No worries. I did a very similar, look at those cute kids with the maroon Shepherd Hill colored caps and gowns on. I'd like to tell you that the ones we're going to show you at the end are these kids, 18, well, it would be about 13 years later, but that wouldn't be true. But so basically, what we're asking the committee tonight is to put official approval to our strategic plan that will begin July 1st. And, you know, this is something, as you all know, that we've been working on for the better part of this, really for the entire year, with lots of opportunities throughout the year for input, and I tried the best I could to keep you updated on the process. So quickly, it really began in August when we got together as an administrative staff and I identified the district's strengths and weaknesses, which we do every year. We then took a bit of a different approach, as you know by now, and looked, instead of looking at just sort of stuff we want to do, we looked at what do we want our students to be able to do or to be like when they graduate from Shepherd Hill. And so we narrowed that down to 7. We then distributed a parent survey and got some feedback there, as well as from several alumni who were interviewed. Then, with that feedback in hand, we gathered about 50 people right here in this space many months ago and divided those into small groups to discuss a vision for the future around those 7 competencies. What came out of that was then reworked by the smaller groups in an individual, you know, in their own setting a couple of times to create specific objectives for each competency area. And fine-tuning and editing took place by members of the small groups. Ultimately, I'm being very repetitive because I've talked about this throughout the year, but it culminates in a plan that we believe represents an exciting shift toward the type of education that our kids need. And we also think it represents a shift that is doable, okay? And we're kind of excited about it. So here we are today, and just to give you a couple of, just a little overview of some of the things that are in the plan once again. I'll turn it over to Lorinda at this point, and then I'll come back again at the end.
Sure. So as we've talked about before, the 7 competencies that we decided our graduates should have to be really competitive in whatever facet of life they head out from here into, whether it be college or military or the job force or trade schools, is academic competencies. So that includes technological literacy. So a lot of the action steps underneath that are we're upgrading the wiring, we're making sure that the students have devices they need and that teachers know how to use it. We're using the portals for grading and really working on providing PD and getting our students comfortable with doing documents and tasks in Google Classroom. Another part of the academic competencies is critical thinking and problem solving. And all of you know how crucial that is to anything you do in life and to be able to think creatively. A lot of us learned where you just memorized information and spit it back, but life has changed so much. So we need to help our students learn how to think. And one of our big pushes this year, as again, as you've talked about, and as Mrs. Rath and Mrs. Antossi so greatly shared a presentation on a few months ago, is project-based learning or problem-based learning. And taking something that is a real-life, real-world problem and letting kids learn as they work through that and try to formulate a solution within that. The other big thing that we heard, especially from our alumni, was financial literacy and life skills. We also moved on to some personal competencies that we want our students to do. One of those is empathy. And we felt like we do that really well in our 7 schools now, but we just want to continue to build on that. And one of the things that the empathy group came up with is a school-wide motto, everyone matters. And that also ties back into our equity findings from our coordinated program review, with making sure that there's no child, no student, no faculty that is left out in any area.
A funny anecdote around that, I showed this, I always think, what would, my grandfather passed away in the mid-'80s, I always think, what would he think of this? You know, whenever something kind of different happens in the world, so I showed this to my father. I said, hey Dad, this is our new strategic plan here. He's 76 years old, went to school at, go to Commerce High School in Worcester. Anyway, and he couldn't, it was like another language to him. It was almost like, but when he got to this part, he said, empathy, what do you need that for? I just thought that was so funny. And I said, Dad, well, you know, some of the things that are in short supply in the world today that could set our kids apart, we want to emphasize that. And so certainly trying to understand other people better is going to help our kids and give them an advantage in the world that they're going out into.
Absolutely. Initiative and self-direction, and again, having our kids be able to just go out and do it and not have to always have that adult support. To be able to have a growth mindset that failure is an opportunity to learn and to change how you do things and to rethink things. And again, some of the specifics in that is providing remediation and enrichment blocks at all of our schools to give kids that extra space for either some additional support they might need or to be able to grow and figure out what they're really great and passionate at. And then again, something that the school committee's always been really dedicated to is keeping our class sizes in kindergarten through grade 3 small, because that's where students learn the self-initiative and resiliency and self-direction. Effective communication. I think we would all agree in the world we live that if you cannot clearly communicate your ideas and understand what someone's giving back to you, whether in a verbal form or a written form, that you're at a disadvantage. So again, giving our students lots of opportunities to be sure that they become effective communicators.
So a lot of us were able to sit in a room last Thursday. It's Thursday or Friday, the capstone projects? Thursday, I was right. And listen to the 2 girls who were here tonight and 9 other presentations as well. And we got that was just a very small window into what this could look like more frequently in our district. These are kids who researched a topic that was of interest to them. They did thorough research. They were basically, you just get out of their way at this point. They were able to check in with Karen or whoever their mentor was periodically, and then they came forward and they passionately presented to us their findings. And we think that the more we can do that and even bring it down to the younger grade levels, the better off our students are gonna be.
And then finally, that interpersonal competency of global awareness and realizing that our world is becoming smaller, and that countries and ethnicities that we thought were so far away from us are now right in our backyard. And so giving our students opportunities to learn about global events, global cultures, but be able to, again, connect that to real life so that when they leave here, they can be productive citizens.
I don't know if I was the only one when Catherine was speaking about how, you know, she'd only been to Dudley or Sturbridge, and we joked, but I was thinking, you know, some of the students have been to Europe, all over the place, but they don't know how their own hometown works. And so that's another thing. And another piece of being aware globally is being aware right in your own neighborhood of how the operation works and, you know, being a part of that. So there's a lot to it, and it's kind of exciting. These are our kids last year. These are not the same ones from the beginning, but look at those beautiful maroon and gold robes. And so the plan is for this plan to begin, if approved tonight, on July 1st. There is still some work to do, just little things like maybe adding a picture or a quote here and there, nothing substantive. Then some printing that has to take place, and then we plan to put it out on publicly for the community and for our staff, so everybody can start getting a feel for it before July 1st comes along. And I just put countdown to liftoff, 52 days, because we are kind of excited about the direction that this plan sets for our district. That's it. If we have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them, and then we're hopeful for a favorable vote tonight. Thank you for your patience.
Any questions? We were all involved,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it was a lot of work.
It's been a long, intensive process.
It's
so I
going to
don't
be
think
really
there's
cool when
any
it comes
questions
together.
left.
Well.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the strategic plan.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone here, and everyone in this room, and then other people also who really helped us with the ideas and the brainstorming and so on and so forth.
Consideration to name Shepherd Hill Auditorium. Mr. Desto, do you want to start?
I would like to just say one quick thing, Mrs. O'Coin, before the committee discusses this, if possible. So I included in your package for tonight a sample policy that was just simply a mixture of things that I thought were effective from a variety of different policies throughout the area, including a sample policy from MASC. And basically, the committee may wish to consider establishing something like this for future reference. Certainly, the criteria within the draft I gave you covers much, if not all, of what your decision-making process might encompass. But you wouldn't be wrong if you said, well, we don't feel like this requires a policy. For 45 years, our district has occasionally named things after people, and they've gotten it right. I mean, everybody's been very discerning about it and very fair and used excellent judgment, so it may not require a policy. It's really truly at the discretion of the committee. What I will say is if the committee chooses to take a vote tonight on the issue, Mr. Chaplin and I will huddle up if it's a favorable vote in the morning and figure out what the process will be from there. But I just wanted to be sure that the committee should think about whether or not you want to do a policy or not. And notice this policy is called FF. Looks like one of my report cards when I was a kid. So it's, again, either way, I laid it out.
Well, we
and
can
there
think
it
about
is.
the policy. We don't have to do the policy this
Don't have to do
evening,
it
but how do
tonight,
you
no.
people feel about having a policy, Kathy?
I think it should be a procedure rather than a policy. It's much less formal and it's easier to implement. As far as what you gave us, I would just change it to procedure, but I would, after number 2, where he says the following procedure we followed, I thought that was too much, rating
much,
every
yeah.
60 days and so forth. So I thought of maybe.
Locks you in a lot.
So I thought a sentence something like this, after you have number 2, then I would say, once a request has been received, the superintendent, under the direction of the school committee, will research the merits of the request and make a recommendation to the school committee in a timely manner. I can give it to you again, but that's the essence of it. I don't know what the rest of you think. I think this was at least 60 days of written, I mean, it's,
Just too
we know,
too
basically, we
confining.
basically know if the person's qualified or not. I think it was too much. And then the last sentence would be back again, the last paragraph, the selection of individuals that you had at the backside. So I would cross out the 1, 2, 3, 4 and just put one basic
Okay.
sentence that, I don't know what the rest of the committee thinks of that. If you want me to give it to you again.
Sandy, did you get the sentence
You
that
get the
Mrs.
sentence, want me to do it again? I don't have my, it's contagious. I had, once, after the following procedure, no, cross it out, and just say, once a request has been received, the superintendent, under the direction of the school committee, will research the merits of the request and make a recommendation to the school committee in a timely manner. And then leave the last paragraph on the back. The selection is the school committee's decision.
Every case is going to be different.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if we should have a policy or a procedure. I'm just throwing
Well,
that
I think
out.
it would be good, because if someone came to us and said, why did she get it and my friend didn't get it, he taught it
You
for
could
50
cite the
years, well, here's our
procedure. You could
procedure.
cite-
I think we have to have something to back up what we do. Same with the John Pierce group. We should have something, so while no one may complain, there may be one person, which is legitimate. How about a math teacher who was here for 50 years? You know, why didn't they get it? So this is why certain things, I think you have to have something in black and
I
white.
think it's, yeah, but case by case,
So that's
you
why
know.
the case has to fit this criteria, I
Yeah.
would say. But I would make it a procedure. Policy is, it's not really a policy.
No, why are you against having it be a policy?
I think it's more the procedure. Procedure means this is how we're gonna do it. Without a policy, you have to have, if you deviate a little bit from it, you have to go through a first reading, a second. It takes at least a month to fix it. Whereas a procedure, you can kind of, it's not as binding.
Flexibility.
It's right, exactly. It's more flexible procedure, because it's not, you don't have to change it. You could come next week and say, can we change that? And we can just change it right away. If it's a procedure, the policy, you have to go through first reading, second readings. I just think it's more complicated than it has to be.
I guess my question is, for someone from the public that wanted to know how we handle things, the typical place that they go is to look at our online policy manual. So how does the district approach this? How does the district approach that? So something like this, I do like the piece of this where it has to be presented as a written request. This is the reason why. It has to be substantiated and then dealt with. But this is something that's going to be coming through either, you know, for instance, the request that's been made for the auditorium. Obviously, this is, you know, the inspiration behind this is the show choir program. But if it were, you know, an individual for, you know, excellence above and beyond in the realm of teaching, it's going to be coming more than likely through an individual. So I think it's important for guidance to be there for something like this to be initiated. And I do think that it is important that there at least be some format of criteria that is presented so that we don't have conversations of why this and not that down the road. And I like when these are unique and unusual circumstances, for somehow it to be in a written format that can be referred back to after all of us have moved on, and you know, we're leaving something for the people that follow us to say that these are the reasons why, you know, they have been done in the past.
So, do we all agree that we're going to have it as a procedure or a policy? I mean, what's the wishes? What do you think?
Well, I happen to agree with Catherine on this
Procedure.
procedure, just for flexibility purposes.
Yeah, Jamie?
I support what she said. The only thing I would think to possibly add is a sentence that gave this committee the ability to have flexibility. I get that it's a policy or a procedure, whichever we decide to go with, but if there's a sentence that just said the school committee could consider somebody with a unique or
Yeah,
I don't
it
know.
has to be, otherwise we're gonna be naming everything after
Exactly.
somebody. Right?
Exactly.
I think the 1 and 2 up above kind of
Cover that.
spells that out. Unusually effective and dedicated, persistent effort, uncommon, lasting positive impact. I think that's pretty straightforward. What else would you want, what else could you add?
Let me try and answer a concern that I have, is that these are not necessarily gonna be generated internally. Some of these requests are gonna be generated externally. And my concern about whether it be a procedure or policy is that it's someplace that is easily, it's easily accessible to people that wanna say, gee, I wonder if they do something like this. So in our section of the district website where you go in and it has district policies, is there a place to capture things like this?
We could have can we have a procedure section? We have
Sure,
other
we could.
procedures, why don't we add a
Yeah,
procedure section?
we could do that.
So if they don't find
And
it one place, they
we
can look
want
the
to
other.
eliminate like a popularity too contest, because maybe we'll get, requests because this person is popular, and
So.
we have to really.
Right. So,
Sift
I mean,
through
there was
this.
there was a really good conversation regarding the inspiration behind this latest request.
Right.
We should probably go back to the originator of this and just say it needs to be, presented in some type of written format so
Right.
that we can, we can kind of establish the protocol of how these will be handled in the future going forward, and that can be our reference point and our starting point.
Because someone may deserve something and nobody, recommends that. And that's what we have to be careful of.
I'm wondering if this procedure or policy, whatever we decide to make it, should have something within it that states that it is a rare occasion.
Something like that.
Or a rare situation that this would even occur, so that we don't have the situation. I can think of at least 2 other people
Yeah.
that come to mind that have made a significant impact on the district, at least 2. So, to avoid having folks coming to us with all sorts of requests to name everything, in the school building, we should make some kind of statement here that says that it's a rarity.
Right.
That this would occur.
Through the chair, I'm not sure how we would do that, though, because I would think each case has to be brought on its own merit.
Right.
So if somebody thought highly enough of somebody, I don't know if a policy is gonna deter somebody from nominating. Does that make sense? Like, I don't see how that's gonna make it a rarity that folks get nominated or not nominated. Like, how would you put in a policy?
Because the person who's doing the
It
nominating
just
is
sets
speaking.
an expectation, I guess, that it wouldn't be something that, if I think somebody's really wonderful and I just want to bring them forward, that everything would be looked at as a possibility to name something in the school.
Yeah, no,
district. Just setting an expectation more than anything.
So I'm gonna, if I can ask another question, being the ever optimist that I am, that at some point in time we're going to be approved for an MSBA renovation of Shepherd Hill, what happens if there was some major reconstruction and something that we named for somebody no longer exists? Are we obligated to put, I mean, if we were,
To name this,
just for
yeah.
instance, we were to turn around and create a lab wing or something like that, and 20 years from now we're not doing a lab anymore, we're doing something else.
Which is
I mean, it's just it's an interesting question. I mean, I know we're always going to have an auditorium, but it's just.
I do agree with Mary that it has to be a rare thing, because I can think of a lot
But I
of
just
people
don't know how you
that we
Right.
didn't name anything after. and they
We have
left them.
many exceptional
Yeah.
teachers,
Yeah.
so.
That's why in the sentence I suggested, the superintendent has to research the merits, and that's the bulk of it, because, like Mr. Petrusek said, that's not, if I think my person deserves it, I don't care what the procedures are, I'm still gonna make a request, and he's gonna have to do the dirty work, so to speak. I'm not gonna be stopped because, I think they're weird, that's why I'm coming to the committee. So I don't think anything you put in writing would stop a person from saying that person deserves it, but that's why the superintendent has to do the research to get the merits. Does it deserve it?
In the bold sentence for 1C, it says uncommon to start it, and that would
Yeah.
probably stop me a little bit in my tracks, at least to reconsider is this an uncommon occurrence? So maybe that gets to the point that you're concerned with.
I think, and I know that this sentence came from you, Mr. Desto.
How did you know that?
Just guessing. I would wanted to not limit us to only winning teams or organizations. You know, brought honor and pride to the school district. So that would be a concern that I would have.
They agree with you.
They are right there.
They just voted.
It's a done deal.
So, does this need to be tweaked a little bit more with language-wise to take it in a format, you know, with the changes that Mrs. Cabala's made and some of the comments that have been made? Do we need to tweak it a little bit and look at it, you know, in that format before we make a final decision? If we're going from not a policy viewpoint, but taking it to a procedure viewpoint, do you want to take another look at it one more time?
Absolutely. Does the committee want me to reach out to the person who nominated Mrs. Galley and say, we need you to put something in writing expressing, you know, I'll figure out the words at that time. And then while that person is putting that together, essentially what I'm saying is I could potentially come back to the next meeting with an update here, which incorporates your recommendation, Mrs. Cabala. I can find the words to make it more clear that this is a very rare occurrence. And I can also, you know, make it more wide open so that it's clear that it isn't just for a winning coach or that it's for, you know, for example, a math teacher who has changed the lives of some of his or her students and helped, you know, kids who never liked school before to get into college or, you know, whatever. I could probably do better than, I can definitely do better than this, and at the same time have the nominator be working on his or her written narrative.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
Why don't you add the word, I didn't put written in that, why don't you put, what's a written request, put a written, because I didn't put that in there.
It's a tough one for school committees. You know, as I've been looking into this, I talked to several other superintendents that have experienced, they and their school committees have experienced very difficult decisions because there are a lot of great people who come through, but you have to be very careful about emotion and, you know, and momentum and those kinds of things and make absolutely certain. And it's a very difficult decision. So yeah, I think we have to probably be thorough about getting the procedure right.
And we do.
Otherwise, you become the New York Yankees and the Boston Celtics have retired.
How are they
Numbers
doing?
all over the place.
Right?
There are no more
Numbers
single-digit
everywhere.
numbers in New York.
We thought we could honor people by letting them buy a new chair in the auditorium because the springs are a little weak in most of the chairs. So
Yeah, you'd be
you
able
know,
to
you could buy, like they do in church, you
church,
could
they
buy a
have the
pew,
pews,
you
yeah.
could buy a row.
Well, when I left Dudley Middle School, Chris, you might have heard this story. They jokingly said that they were going to name the downstairs 7th grade boys' bathroom after me because I so often had to open the door and say, "Let's go get to class."
So we came to the conclusion that you're going to come back with a procedure, you're going to tweak it, and then you will get in touch with the person that nominated Connie.
Yep,
And he will write up something for you.
absolutely.
Okay, so we'll do that next meeting. Next on the agenda, update on superintendent hiring process. Mr. Desto, did we have a meeting yet on this?
No, I just, knowing that there's a big interest out there, not even so much just among the committee, but everyone in the public, I wanted to put this on the agenda, even if it was only a really brief update, because there isn't a whole lot to share. Basically, all I can say is that the position, as the committee knows, has been posted on School Spring and the MASC website, and we'll be accepting applications until this coming Monday, the 14th. The first meeting of the search committee, which will be to set a course for the committee's work and also review applications, is likely to be later next week, but we're still finalizing those details. As of the time I came down to the auditorium, is this an auditorium? This is a library, but you can see why I made that mistake. As of the time I came down to the library, we had 17 applicants. So a healthy amount. You know, I haven't reviewed them carefully, but that's the job of the search committee. So that's really all there is at that point. I just thought it's such a thing of interest, we probably need to keep the public updated.
Okay, any questions? All right, that brings us to district office open positions and structure. Mary, you had asked for this to be placed on the agenda, so you can start.
I thought this was an important topic to put on the agenda so that we can start discussing our current situation in terms of openings and really take a step back and look at what we want our district to look like. And I spent a lot of time thinking about how I wanted to approach this topic, and I had to really put my thoughts together to do that in an organized way. So I'm just going to share this with you so you can kind of walk through it with me. You can scribble on it, make notes for further discussion, or doodle.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I'll start out by saying I think that we're at a crossroad here where we really need to take a step back and look at the way that we're doing business. Currently, as you know, we have two of the most significant positions in the district vacant, or almost vacant, superintendent and curriculum director. Even before we learned of Mr. Desto's career plans, we had voiced concern in many meetings over the scope of the superintendent's job responsibilities and how realistic these expectations were. Whenever something comes up, we always say, well, you know, go take care of that. You can handle that. And he willingly does that. But it's really too big of a job for one person, especially with the reality of being in charge of 7 schools and 4,000 plus students in the district. We're now looking at our second superintendent who is stepping into a principal position, and we have to take a hard look at why this is happening. The superintendent is involved in every facet and detail of the organization, from human resources to crisis management to administrative and policy duties, strategic and tactical planning, community engagement, lobbying with legislators, and even being the weatherman. The list goes on and on. It's just too big of a job for one person. The detailed demands required of the superintendent prohibits him from focusing full necessary attention on some of the very important things that we need to focus on: community outreach, district strategy, leading the way toward educational legislative reform. With the loss and the hire of each superintendent, the district incurs a significant cost of interviewing, productive time lost, contract negotiations, training, ramp-up time, and lost progress towards strategic objectives. Also lost is significant institutional knowledge as each superintendent leaves. They've gained a lot of knowledge here, and that leaves with them. Another major point of concern with our current situation that I want to bring to the attention is that there is no line authority beyond the superintendent. If, God forbid, the superintendent were to get run over by a bus, no pun intended, there would be no one in the district with the authority to make decisions across his many direct reports. This includes administrators, principals, and clerical. We need a second in command that has the authority to make decisions in the absence of the superintendent, and should think about a position for a superintendent in training, so to speak. In times of crisis, we need to have a structure in place in which business can continue to be conducted. As many other districts have done, we need to put a succession plan in place which allows for a smooth transition should the superintendent leave the position. We've talked a little bit about this, but to simply add line authority to an already existing position is extremely short-sighted, in my opinion, and doesn't solve the problem before us. We cannot throw additional responsibilities at already full plates and expect better outcomes. It simply shifts the burden to another burden-laden position, and by doing so, we risk the loss of another employee and incur additional compensation costs for those additional responsibilities added. We're a $50 million business. No other business of this magnitude is successful with all of the responsibility lying on one person. Even the town of Charlton, during the time of having to dig into reserves to balance the budget, recognized the need to evaluate the town administrative structure and put in place necessary human resources and other positions. This supported the town administrator by offloading responsibilities that made that job too big, provided the need for town job functions, enabled the town administrator to focus attention on important strategic initiatives. We're currently at a point where we have a window of opportunity to improve our situation. The superintendent position is being taken care of in the near term with the interim superintendent. This will allow us the time necessary to find the best person for the job. The same approach should be taken with the vacancy that was created with the position of curriculum director. We're being provided with the opportunity to analyze and restructure job descriptions and responsibilities. Without the time to explore our central office operations and determining how best to meet the future needs of our district, we are doing a disservice to the students, staff, and communities we represent. Before jumping in to fill them, as they are currently defined, we should take a step back and evaluate what we really need and what would work better for the district. Once the positions are filled, the opportunity to reevaluate and really make a difference is lost. This is not an effort to create new positions as much as it is to redefine and restructure current positions for greater effectiveness. To enable the superintendent to move the district forward with strategic focus, to put in place a succession plan for the most critical position in the district. Therefore, I would like to propose the following for discussion. Suspend the search for the curriculum director temporarily to allow us time to solicit the assistance of MASC and MARS to come to discuss with us how they have helped other districts reevaluate and restructure their central offices to gain efficiencies, and what they can do to help us determine the structure and positions within it that makes the most sense for our district. Should the school committee allow the curriculum director position to be filled prior to any analysis of our central office and administration, repost it as an interim position instead. This would allow us time to respond to needed changes and repost the position during the 2018-2019 school year. These are my thoughts. I gave it a lot of thought. I think this is our window of opportunity to really take a look at what we should be doing, and I bring that to all of you for discussion.
Thank you, Mary. It was well done. Okay, who wants to start the discussion?
I will.
Okay.
First of all, Mary, this is great. It's
was
good work,
well done.
and it's, I agree with about 98% of it. And the only thing I would say to begin the discussion is that if the committee decides that you want to study the structure and really take a look at it over the course of the next roughly year or so, that would be probably wise. However, I do think we have to put somebody in place. So whether the committee decides to enable me to hire for a person who's going to be there for however long, whether you choose to do it as an interim, that would, I could live with that. But we do have to put somebody in place for the time while you're doing the study. There's no question about it. And should the curriculum director position be an interim position, that would put you with an interim superintendent and an interim curriculum director. If you can live with that, that's okay. I suppose that would be doable. Keep in mind too that the likelihood would be, and I guess this really doesn't matter, it might matter, I don't know, is that the interim superintendent is likely to be picking once your study is complete and you have recommendations for how to proceed, would the permanent superintendent who comes in a year down the line, it be in place to choose that person, you know what I'm saying? Or would it be the interim person picking the long term? And is that what you want? So those are some things to consider. I will say, you know, that I do agree with Mary that this is something, the structure should be looked at because, you know, we're a big, complex district, and most districts of our size do have a different setup. We have been fortunate that we've had people who work really hard and people who are efficient, and the people I have in the district office are amazing, and they do a whole lot of good work in the amount of time that most people can't do it, and we've been fortunate for that. But no question, taking a look at this is probably wise, but as I said, I would insist that we have to put somebody in place before too long, because the job's, you know, once Mrs. Allen assumes the role of special ed director in July, just hit the ground running with that, and then we need somebody to be in there taking over for her. So whether you choose to do it as an interim or a longer term, that has to be in place, in my opinion.
So what are our thoughts?
Through the chair, this has been something that has been discussed, and I know it's been brought up before in budget and finance regarding this. So just a couple of thoughts. I agree, Mr. Desto, that for a district of our size, we have an extremely thin central office staff. I hear and agree with Mrs. Antosi's point that this type of opportunity to restructure doesn't come along, where you have an opportunity to reevaluate job responsibility and what we're doing. One of the reasons why this is appealing to me is that I know that the district has a very strong culture of internal hire and promotion. And I like the piece of having a succession plan in place. Having someone come in, I think if Mr. Desto will attest to how overwhelming it is to step into this role. I know just at the Mars meeting that I was at yesterday, they said there are 14 new superintendent changes this year. And the typical time period in most circumstances is 3 to 5 years in a position. I'd certainly like to be in a position to grow our candidates from within to step up into the role of superintendent and have them have a greater awareness of it. Regional school districts, we talk about this all the time, regional school districts are much more complex than running a municipal school district. The budget process is different, and you have more governmental agencies to deal with. We're lucky we only have 2. So there's a lot to this that I really like. To your point of looking to hire a person for the curriculum director position, if that was the decision of the committee to move forward, I definitely think it needs to be an interim position. If we restructure this to an assistant superintendent with a concentration on curriculum, then credentialing would have to be there. So we'd have to leave ourselves open for whoever is in that position, that they have the credentialing if it were to go any kind of permanent way. We have posted, and believe we have posted the interim superintendent position as a possibility that the candidate, the person could be a candidate for the permanent position. So whether or not that may or may not alleviate a concern that we'd be going through multiple changes, I don't know. But I'm interested in hearing what other people think.
Well, I think we definitely need the curriculum director. We can't wait till next year. I see the point. I know an interim would be better in terms of the long range, but I think Mr. Dutton makes a good point that the superintendent, it might only be for a year, would appoint that person, then be gone. So that's it's kind of dicey how you would handle that.
It's almost like the perfect situation would be a 2-year interim.
No,
you know,
yeah.
I've never seen that done before, and but I don't know, or even an 18-month or something, I don't know.
But then how would we handle, suppose someone within our school system wants to apply. Now, this person's the interim. Is she going to have, suppose she's not hired for the permanent curriculum, is she going to be able to go back to her position?
Yeah, she would take a leave. We did that for other people.
Yeah,
They take a leave for
she'd
that
have to
position.
take-
Yeah, if it's an
Oh,
interim
wait.
position, I would say, I would
Takes a leave.
strongly encourage that person to do a
Take a
leave of
leave.
absence.
Yeah,
That's similar to what we did with Mrs. Walsh when she was
Yeah.
the reading.
yeah, they saved the position.
Right.
I mean, my preference, obviously, as maybe the person who knows the district the best,
Right.
who's walking the earth right now, whether I wanted to or not, I do, is I want to pick the person who's going to be here a while. But Mrs. Antasi, you're right. I mean, you make a very good case, and it is something that we should look at. I have lived in this seat for 4 years, and the man who lived in it before me for a lot longer is a friend, and we've talked about it too. It's a lot, and it's doable now, but if you're the kind of person who really lives and breathes it, it can wear you out. And there's no question that this is a smart thing to take a look at. But in the meantime, we need somebody in that
We
seat
do
doing
need
the
a
job.
curriculum,
And I mean, I could look at whether 2-year interims are a thing. I've never heard of it. Has anybody ever seen
I
that?
think you can make them interim as long as you want. There's no
Right.
state law.
Yeah.
But let's stop to think about this. We're looking right now at hiring an interim, replacing the superintendent position right now with an interim. We can be posting the position of the permanent person probably at the end of the year, beginning of the year, and start the superintendent search in the beginning of 2019. If we have a candidate, we've selected that candidate, we could involve that person even prior to being part of, being, officially hired by the district, as part of the search committee as a community interest person. So I think there is still possibility of how you could engage the next person. I'd like to think that we're gonna get, 2 birds with 1 stone, and we're gonna hire an interim that wants to be a candidate for the position and does a good job, and we start rolling the ball early. But if not, we can still find a way to engage the future permanent superintendent in the search process, even if we do an interim for 1 year. I think my important thing in looking at this and having really tried to actively, and I know Mrs. Antasi and I have both been to several Morris trainings this year, is really looking forward to the future of the district and trying to set ourselves up structurally so that we have a more seamless transitions with things. We have somebody that's coming in that is actively part of the budget process, part of the ability to assume levels of responsibility, to become more familiar and well-versed in issues, to step up into a greater role. Whatever we look at, I think that position is going to be requiring credentials above and beyond just what a curriculum director credentials are. So I think we need to leave ourselves that opportunity to do that.
So, are we going to vote on an interim?
So I'll make a motion that we look at filling the curriculum director position on an interim basis, allowing is a motion, and I don't know whether or not to include it. I think the second motion needs to be that we look at setting up some type of a subcommittee or some process of bringing in MASC and Morris to start working
Yeah,
with
that'll be a
us.
separate motion.
Separate motion.
But
So
the
my first-
interim is going to be for 1 year? Are we going to do 1 year?
I wouldn't put that in there because maybe why it'd be 2. I mean,
Well, you-
but you'd have
Well,
to
they
tell the
have to
person.
tell
You have
the
to tell
person, you
no.
have to
I would
do-
say that we create an interim position for 1 year with the potential of being extended to a second year.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion on
Did
it?
you already post that position?
Yes, I haven't taken any action on it, but it's been posted. And so what I would do, if this is the way the committee wants to go, is tomorrow we would send a message out to the candidates on School Spring saying that this has now been changed to an interim. We completely understand if you want to withdraw your application. There are several candidates, I think, who won't withdraw their application, and then there will be a bunch who do, but that's.
Are some of them certified as assistant superintendents, do you know that offhand?
I don't know that offhand. What I do know, and I would be happy to say publicly, is that we have several really good administrators in our district who are certified as assistant and superintendents, who might have an interest in that job, and, you know, that should, when it comes to that point, if it comes to that, you know, be given an opportunity to compete, and we could do certainly worse than them.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Nice job, Mary.
Very good, Mary.
Thank you.
Now,
Question?
okay,
We
Jamie.
need to follow up the second part of what Mary had proposed, which would be to have a committee or a member from the MASC.
Come in, well,
Come
that's
in.
what we're going to do next.
Okay.
We said that's a second motion.
Separate motion, okay.
Yeah, separate motion. So we'll talk about that. Do we all want someone to come in to help us with this? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
So I make a motion that we contact both MASC and Mars to ask them, I believe MASC, this would be part of our membership, that they could come out and give us some advice and some
Insight.
suggestions on how to move forward, but contact both of those organizations to come out, perhaps at, you know, a next meeting or two to talk with us.
Okay, second?
Second.
Any more discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. Okay, next on the agenda, consideration of Article 23, enrollment of employees' children. Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. So we have, let's see, we have 4 requests that were recently received just before the May 1st deadline to add to what you approved at the last meeting. And so in the superintendent's report, in the school committee package, you had, if you approve, you had the specifics of who's requesting and what grade level their children are in. And there's a chart there that gives you an idea. If you do approve these requests, it would bring the total number of employees' children to 9. And they would be scattered. You couldn't do it much better if you planned it out. It's really 1 or 2 in each grade between K and 7, almost each grade between K and 7. So there's no real burden on the class sizes. So I do strongly recommend your approval.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion?
What do these numbers bring the total class sizes to?
It really doesn't move them but 0.1 or something like that. It's, you know, so I don't have that with me tonight, but if, you know, it's absolutely very, very minimal. You're talking about 2 kids, you know, in a grade level
Were we already
across
at-
5 or more classes.
Okay, were we already at 24, or, and now
The
it's-
kindergarten is like 23, that's the highest one we have.
Okay.
So that's the only one that there's any concern whatsoever, and I still feel as though I think that the good outweighs the bad, and I would recommend it.
Any other discussion?
Just a question, just a confirmation, so when we accept these students in, they actually become our enrolled students on,
Correct.
so October 1 numbers, we're at full per pupil.
That's right, they're not a school choice
Correct.
placement.
Okay.
Anything else? Seeing that, no discussion, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. Consideration to accept foreign exchange students, policy JF, Mr. Desto.
So, Mrs. O'Coin, I'm going to ask that we table this tonight because Noelia Torregrosa from Spain apparently has traded Shepherd Hill for a player to be named later. And, the family that was had planned to host Noelia is looking into another student though, and I think it'd be even as early as the next meeting that I'll bring forward a different request.
Okay.
So I apologize, that came into Mr. Chaplin just this afternoon.
Go ahead, you wait.
Just a comment, Mr. Dessler. When we were down at MASC in November, and I don't have the information available, there was a company that does foreign exchange students that actually pays tuition
Yeah,
for
we-
it. And the companies that we use right now, we receive nothing for
Right.
having these students here. And they don't count towards our October 1 numbers.
That's correct. If you remember, and it's a hazy recollection for me, I think it was my first year as superintendent, the district had entered into an agreement with a company that facilitated exchange students from China. And there was, I don't know if you would say they paid tuition, but we got paid for hosting them. We never did get any students, and then so that agreement came and went without any benefit to the district. But there are things like that out there. But the ones that we have utilized in the past, there is no financial reward for us at all. It's basically just the rich satisfaction of the cultural enrichment that comes with having the student in our school. So you're right, there are programs that do this, but the ones that we've worked with to this point have not been those.
So do we have any other foreign exchange students? Do we have one already that is scheduled to come in next year?
No, we had one this year from Norway, Finland? Sweden. Go figure, it was one of the three. And so this was the first request we had so far, so this one obviously not working, but we do know that there's going to be another one.
Is this something that I can ask somehow, and I don't know whether or not this would fall on Mr. Chaplin's shoulders or perhaps Mrs. Perangeli to explore other companies that also host students that have an availability of tuition. I think there's a benefit to having foreign exchange students. It would certainly be fantastic, and maybe if there was an opportunity to promote some of the new things that we've got going on in the high school, you know, the global pathways, the sports teams, our show choir, that we might find something to market and possibly be able to get the benefit of a foreign
Sure.
exchange student with some extra tuition money?
Yep, we can look into that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so we'll table that. And last on the agenda, consideration to set last day of school. Mr. Desto.
Somebody asked me why we wait this long, and I said, really? So what I'm requesting school committee vote to approve June 21st as the last day of school, and I recommend making that an early release day for students.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of Thursday, June 21st, and it will be an early release for students.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor. Motion carries, it's unanimous. Okay, that brings us up to the next meeting dates. School committee meetings, Wednesday, May 23rd, Charlton Middle School, 7 p.m. Wednesday, June 13th, Shepherd Hill Regional High School, 7 p.m. Budget and Finance Subcommittee, Wednesday, May 9th, Shepherd Hill Regional High School, 5 p.m.
That should be changed to June 13th. 'cause we had
Okay,
that.
so that was changed to June
Oh,
13th.
yeah.
We just set that
That's
tonight.
right. Sorry. Approval of the warrant. We do have a warrant this evening, and we will be signing it, or if you have already signed it. Future agenda items, budget school improvement plans, superintendent hiring process. Who else would like to add something?
Procedure for naming.
Okay,
And we have the special ed van cameras.
all right. Anyone else?
How about MASC or Mars representative?
We might be able to get them for the next meeting. Anything else? Okay. And that brings us up to executive session. So this evening, we will enter into executive session to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And we will reconvene into regular session to take votes if necessary and adjournment. I'll take a roll call. Jamie?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Elaine and Stephanie, yes. Okay, we're now in executive session.